Guess who it is,
Look at
friends?
us.
Look at us. I love it.
You know how important this topic is?
Oh, tell me.
I closed Slack.
You
I
didn't.
just shut it down.
Don't lie on live camera.
I just shut it down.
How many tabs do you have open right now?
In which having across how
Right.
many
I
different
don't know.
windows?
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know the answer. Did we coordinate our shirts today without thinking about it?
I think I had mine on first.
Magical. How magical. Well, hi everyone. If you don't know us already, I'm Kristin Hancock. My pronouns are she and her.
And
My fancy title. Wait a second. I got to introduce my fancy title that I gave myself is the Vice President of Community and Engagement at Ecology. I am joined by my partner in life and work, Mr. Chuck Gose. Do you want to
I
introduce
thought,
yourself?
yeah, but I thought you were the champagne socialist.
That's
That
also I
was your
should put that
title.
as my title, the
You
Champagne
should.
Socialist.
So I kickstarted Ecology years ago as the podcast. Kristin has now taken the reins and is doing great things with it. Also, the head of community and industry insights for First Up and proud dog father to Boomer.
See, when I put the banner up, you can't see your title. Let me remove it here.
There.
So I have Ecology because that's my job. Chuck
Yeah.
has First Up, Ecology, and Boomer. I asked him why he had Boomer, and he said it's because that's who he answers to.
It's true.
So
He's over in his beanbag right now.
So there we go. There we go. So welcome everyone. The topic for today, this is our first Ecology Presents of 2023. So yay us. The topic of the day is so you want to speak at a comms conference. This is the last few months has been the time of year when all of the, well, I shouldn't say all of the, but quite a few of the main conferences start looking for speakers and workshop facilitators and presenters and keynotes for their conferences. And both of us have had a few people ask us about how to get into it. I know talking with Ecology members, when I talk to new members, that's one of the things I ask them is, are you interested in speaking at events? And if you are, then I would love to help you do that. So we thought, well, what a lovely way to spend a February midday, then maybe giving some advice or some tips to people about how we got involved in speaking at events and what that might look like for you. So in the comments, I know there's people joining us on LinkedIn. Let us know where you're from. We can see who you are because we can see your name. Let us know if you have spoken at conferences before, if you want to speak at conferences, if you're worried about conferences, whatever the questions might be, we will address them all. This is a no holds barred event, but I will set some ground rules. Chuck and I have discussed, listen to him, listen, he's like, I can already tell he's getting smug about this. We're not naming names, okay, on this live stream event. We're going to be talking about different associations and industries, and we might bring up conference names and things. That's fine. We're not, you agreed, we're not throwing anybody under the bus. Okay.
There are no buses today.
No buses today.
But
yeah.
in lieu of a bus,
okay,
I do have a poem.
Oh, excellent.
That I would like to read.
Please do. I would love to hear it.
About speaking at conferences.
Okay.
It's written by one of my favorite poets. Okay, here we go. Standing tall upon the stage, the lights upon my face, a hush descends upon the crowd as I prepare to speak with grace. The room is full of eager ears, hungry for the words I'll say. I take a breath and start to speak. With confidence, I seize the day. My words are like a river flowing forth with force and might as I paint a picture with my voice and I make my points both clear and bright. The audience nods and murmurs as I touch their hearts and minds, and I know that I am making an impact of a special kind. For in this moment, we are one, connected through my words, and though we're from different places, we share a bond that will endure. So as I step down from the stage, I feel a sense of pride, for I have touched so many lives and taken them on a powerful ride. And I know that I will always cherish this experience of speaking at a conference and making such a difference.
The world needs to know, who is your favorite poet?
Chat GPT.
Amazing. Amazing, because Erica Goodwin said, was Chat GPT? Yes, Erica. In fact, it was. Incredible. Incredible. Oh my gosh. Our friend Russell wants to know, will we be discussing conference?
100%.
Oh, we will. Don't worry.
100%.
We will.
Yes.
Asking for a friend. The friend is me, probably. Incredible. Ed is joining us from he says San Francisco Bay Area, but I know Ed well enough to know that he's a proud Oakland native. So there you go.
I like itches.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to scratch
Ed.
it, Ed. We're gonna help you.
I like that, Ed. I already got ideas for Ed. Ideas.
Phenomenal. Yep. Well, there you go, Ed. Welcome aboard.
I'll get in touch, Ed.
Welcome aboard. Gianna's here from Denver. She has spoken at a conference. Amazing. I'm missing something in the chat. Zane's like, don't at me, bro. Lanice is here, Richmond, Virginia. She's interested. Oh, I don't want to ruin a surprise, but we've got Lanice on the docket for our March event. Amazing. Oakland. Rachel's here from Oakland, has spoken a long time ago. Questions, looking for suggestions. Cool. Amazing. So, oh, look, Salt Lake City. Amazing. I love this. Okay. I love that Chat GPT is our poet now. So this is all kinds of good
poet
times.
Laureate. I don't know what it means to be a laureate, but
I have no idea. Maybe it's the same thing as a champagne socialist. Okay, here's our first topic of discussion. Where do you start? So I'm going to kick this off as soon. This is as if you have not ever spoken at a conference. And so the first thing I'm going to say is that it's a great idea to start small. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't submit for any and everything that you would like to see yourself on stage at, or in a conference room, or doing a workshop, or whatever. A lot of the speaking gigs that I did originally, I would like to hear about your early days, actually, Chuck, in doing speaking things, but it was for smaller conferences. So like 20 to 50 people, maybe, instead of thinking of the massive conferences that we all know. It was being on podcasts, because that counts as a speaking gig in my eyes. And it was also doing small local events that I could weasel my way into. This is true. Russell and I met at a conference. Chuck and I met at a conference.
I was going to say, why does Russell get this tagline?
Because he's Canadian. He's Canadian. Amazing. Okay, Chuck, what are the early days of Chuck Go speaking at events?
Is this going back to like the days of yore?
Yes, I want the original little Chuck on the sidewalk.
I think mine started more internally, speaking at events at companies, like town halls and webinars internally.
Okay.
That I realized how much I enjoyed it. And so then it started doing more, I would say probably more webinars back then, because I didn't have a big travel budget, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But webinars got to be an easy way to practice storytelling. Obviously, there's a big difference between doing webinars versus live presentations, which is why I then started to skew live. But I think there's always a lot of people are better at webinars and virtual presentations. We'll talk through some of the merits of those. But I think that's probably how I got started. And I think it's a great way for others to start, is even internally at your company town halls, at team meetings, at cross-functional meetings. If you've got a story to tell, get creative. Come up with a great way to tell it, because that can be the foundation or bedrock in taking that externally. I also think when you start and you're thinking about speaking at a conference, do you want to speak about what you've done? That's one track to take. Or do you want to speak about what you believe in? And I think that's a different track to take. And those are two also very different presentations that people might have different skills or confidence levels in.
Let's save that thought for when we talk about what do you talk about, because I like that train of thought, because there are two different types of presentations, I guess, you could look at. I think it's easy to be intimidated by submitting or for a conference, regardless of the size of it. Chuck and I have both served, and I know there are people who are joining us today on the chat here. Chuck and I have both served on multiple different industry associations, selection process committees for small up to very large conferences. That's accurate?
Across various acronyms of
Yes,
organizations.
many different acronyms. We have been involved with many different acronyms.
Yes.
And been directly involved with the selection process for
Yes.
many different conferences. And I will tell you that there are varying degrees of shenanigans, transparency, ethics, I don't know, insert whatever word you want to say there.
Yep.
So do not be intimidated. Often the reason that you see the same names presenting over and over again, and Chuck and I are part of that, is because the people know the people. Like there's the industries can be a bit incestuous at times. So rejection is part of the process. I will say this because I posted about it on LinkedIn. Chuck, you posted about it as well. I think I'm up to 5 or 6 time rejection champion from IABC World Conference. Pretty proud of that at this point. And that's not an indictment of IABC. It's just to show people that I'm relatively known in our industry, and that doesn't always matter. So don't be intimidated by acronyms who are putting on conferences, because you never know who's involved in the selection process. Some of them don't have the most transparent selection process. So it's always worth it to put your name in.
I would say the right conferences need new names.
Agreed.
And need new blood and new ideas, because it is easy to fall on the known names. Because to your point, Kristin, sometimes that's a positive, but if you've spoken at that event in the past, again, the good ones may not want to repeat because they might be worried about repeating content. They're probably inclined to do that. So you talked about your rejections. I went public with being rejected at IBC World Conference. I wanted other people to raise their hands on it. I have spoken at IBC World Conference a few times, but I've been rejected multiple times beyond that. So you've said 5 or 6. I've probably been rejected 10 or 12 times. I don't know. I've lost track.
Right.
So it's not discouraging. It's frustrating at times to be rejected from a conference. My recommendation, this is a bit of a tough one sometimes, but do not take it personally. You're going to naturally do that, but it's not usually personal. Not to say that's not ever personal, but it's usually not personal. As you said, we've seen how the sausage gets made at some of these conferences.
This is true.
It's not pretty. When we've been involved in speaker selection processes, we've tried to be as transparent as possible, but there were still probably even criticisms of that. There is no perfect process. So all you can do is hope that you've put your best foot forward, and the story you're telling or the video you submitted with it, whatever, is enough to grab that person's attention. So if you get selected, great. If you don't get selected, there are tons of other opportunities that we'll talk about where you can proudly share your experiences and your stories.
Yep. Love it. Zane brings up a painful point that is absolutely true. Sometimes being at a conference feels like you're just watching the kids have fun. I think that every industry has their little cliques and their little whatever. And, it's human nature to join up with people that you know and all that kind of stuff. But I do agree, Zane, it can be challenging. And so then that adds to the intimidation factor for applying to speak at that conference, because you're like, I don't know these people and I'm not part of the cool kids crew or whatever it is. I'm not part of the in crowd. But I think I agree with Chuck. I think the conferences that are trying to do things better are the ones who are looking for new voices to speak, and having new people being involved with that. So rejection is a part of it. Chuck and I, again, in our little industry, people know who we are. We get rejected from stuff all the time. That's just part of how it is. It also, to Chuck's point, not taking it personally, I'm probably always going to take it personally because that's just kind of who I am. So I'll take it personally for a few hours and then I'll get over it. You also don't know who else they're looking for. It is entirely possible that someone else submitted the exact same topic as you, or they've got too many of this topic or too many of this person, whatever, too many of this industry. You never know. So it doesn't always mean that your presentation was going to be terrible. Now, Lanice brings up an interesting point if we're talking about the application process of recording what you do. And I think that's an awesome idea. When we did Camp Ecology last fall in Chicago, one of our workshop facilitators asked if he could set up a camera and audio and things to get footage of him facilitating a workshop. It didn't, from what I understand, didn't take a lot of technical effort for him to do that. He had just used his iPhone and connected a Bluetooth audio thing, whatever. So but it is true. More and more conferences are asking for proof of past experiences if they don't know you, or if it tends to be a larger conference where there might be dozens or hundreds of people submitting, they want to see video proof of you doing a good job. You could also set up in your living room and do a talk that way, just so people can, see what's going on. But yes, great idea to record some of that. Oh, Russell's calling us out. Do you want to be called out, Chuck?
Yeah, I saw it. Bring it up.
All right, here we go. I've been rejected many times. I recall getting rejected once, even with Kristin and Chuck on the judging panel. This is true. This happened. This happened. And there are, hence
the word panel.
Yeah.
Not the Kristin and Chuck decision tree.
Correct.
Right.
We were part of, how many people are on that? We're on that 6, 8, something like that.
At least 8 people.
Yeah. So anyway, this also happens where someone can be vouching for you, but it's a voting. If it's, I think, in my opinion, if it's done properly, it's an ethical voting system, a democracy of people choosing who is going to be speaking at conferences. And so sometimes this happens. So Russell, thanks for still being our friend.
And as I recall, because as Kristin knows, I keep receipts.
Oh, he does.
I believe this session that Russell submitted to this conference won an award with another organization.
True.
So even there, it's tough to make those comparisons. But yes,
but now Russell, we might snag him for Camp Ecology. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Okay, so places to start. We've talked about doing things internally. People love that in the chat. That's a great tip. I will also say local chapters of associations. So your local IABC PRSA chapters, it's often a smaller group. They're often looking for content for their monthly events, luncheons, whatever they do. That's a great
selfishly. So I think that's a great suggestion, whoever threw that in there, because oftentimes internal comms content specifically related to what we do is missing from those content plans. So they are looking for a change of pace, different content. They don't need another PR firm. No offense to anybody who works at a PR firm coming on there every month talking about some PR strategy. They're looking for local stories. So if you do that, whoever recommended that, it's a great recommendation because they're looking for local content and specifically internal comms content.
That was our friend Erica who recommended it.
Oh, fantastic. Great, Erica.
Ed's got a question. Would you say the more prominent events are looking for speakers to think out of the box with their submission? I don't know how to answer this question, Chuck. You want to answer it?
No, they're not.
I don't think they are.
They're looking for the bigger the conference. Maybe that's the wrong way. The more the legacy of the conference, they always tend to play it safer.
I would agree with that.
So it's not so much out of the box. I mean,
bad thing.
It's a boring thing.
It's a thing.
I'm on Ed's side on this. I think that's Ed is what we're trying to change with ecology, and some of the things I'm doing at First Up is changing that tone, changing the presence, changing what gets talked about, and it's not the dinosaurs out there all the time talking about the same thing over and over and over again. So I think you can be prominent and have really creative talks and really creative approaches and think about how to engage audiences in new ways. And I think sometimes the trending topics end up being a sexy thing to go after because you think, oh, everybody's talking about that, I should talk about that too. I think it's, again, if you want to be outside the box, talk about the things that others aren't talking about, but should be. talking about. That's how you get seen. It's the whole zig and zag, I guess, approach of everybody's talking. I mean, we joked about Chat GPT, but like now that's the hot topic.
Yeah.
So there's probably, I would love to know from World Conference how many topics they had presented about Chat GPT from a bunch of people who are not experts.
Or just AI in
on it.
general.
Right.
Probably. Yeah, they probably had tons of
That's
submissions
a
about
type.
that.
Now, if you're an expert on it, you have a chance to rise above, but it's hard to rise above that noise. Start talking about something else that's different and interesting, and you be the trend.
Yeah.
You lead people down that
Yeah.
path. I love this participation from
I know,
everybody.
it's so great.
It's so great.
Okay, on the note of dinosaurs, I also would like to make it clear. Chuck and I are very aware that we are becoming the dinosaurs of the industry.
I want to be the dinosaur one day.
Right. So that's awesome. I don't really want to, I want to be a more of like a dinosaur with like wings, or I don't know, something like
the
prettier.
cool, like genetic ones from Jurassic Park, like the cool new dinosaurs.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is why I want to point out, at least to pat ourselves on the back for one thing, Ecology has existed for 2 years, and this is the first time that Chuck and I have done a live stream together. So
yeah,
we're trying to not always be the voices. And so that's partly why we're imparting our little tips and tricks and wisdom, so that more people can be involved in these kinds of things. Okay, so Ed says, thanks for the insights.
Can you bring up the comment from Caitlin? I know I said I was going to like call shots out on things. Okay.
Yes.
Caitlin, I love this question. And you're interested in joining a panel. I have made it a point to always avoid panels at events. And here's why. And maybe you could be part of the change that needs to happen with panels. The last thing we need at an event is a bunch of people all up on stage agreeing with each other. Yes, I agree. And yes, I agree. But yes, that's a great point. And like we could have one person do all that. What I want to see on a panel is more of a true conversation.
You want to throw down is what you're
I don't
looking
want to
for.
throw down. I just want people to be like, I hear what you're saying, but this is my perspective. Or
Right.
that's not how I would do it. I would do it this way. When everybody's on stage and agreeing with everyone else, man, I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking at my phone. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking to get out. So when we think of that outside the box stuff that Ed was talking about, the only panel that I've ever had that has gone well.
Oh, again, I want to hear this.
It was thrown together at the very last minute because we had some sort of schedule change. And I pulled up on stage. I'm not a big like millennials are this and baby boomers are this and Gen Y is this, because I'm Gen X and nobody talks about us anyway. So
here we go.
What I focused on was I pulled up from the audience people that weren't speakers representing each of those generations and just talked about how alike they are, but also what are their unique pressures. So we can actually have a real conversation between generations and not this stereotypical view of who generations are. Then at the end, I had each of them share what was it that they admired about the previous generation that they faced. And then that sparked a new conversation because they didn't know there was this mutual respect between one another. Yeah. So it's almost like the panels, the more spontaneous, the better, the more controversial, the better. But if it's a stage with everybody agreeing with everybody,
or a panel where the panel facilitator asks one question and then goes down the line and everyone answers and then they ask the next. Yeah, that's not a panel. That's just a
scripted.
Right,
yeah, when it's scripted,
right.
We got power to the Gen X.
Gen X is Gen X. We see you. We get it.
Nobody does. The invisible generation.
Stop. Okay. I also want to make 2 points about where to look or where to start. Hello, Ecology. We host monthly live streams like this where I am always asking members. Yes, you do have to be a member because that's my priority. Do you want to be on a panel? Do you want to chat about something? Do you have experience, not necessarily expertise? Because internal comms people are always like, I'm not an expert, even when you are. We're always looking, and we compensate people, which we're going to talk about later. So a place like Ecology, amazing. Like that's also a great place to get started. So if you have an idea that you want to share either inside Ecology for some kind of event or on a live stream like this, and we are now doing more Camp Ecology events in person. for this year. So if you have a workshop that you want to test out, let me know. Come at me, bro. Let me know. The other thing I will say is, and maybe Chuck, you can speak to this working at First Up, who are the vendors that you work with at your companies? Because they are often looking for customers to share their stories or be on webinars or talk to their sales teams or whatever that is. That's a great place to start, to get started.
Yeah, it's a massive opportunity. And I think a lot of people, there's this jaded view at times that's participating with vendors is like, oh, it's just for sales. Oh, it's just for this. There's an element of that, but it's really an amazing professional development opportunity. When I put on it, I should say I put on, when we put on a tune last year in Chicago, I'm going to throw out a ballpark number that I feel is accurate. 98% of the content at that event was not first up speakers. It was practitioners. It is people in the industry. It is the common voices that we hear, but doing workshops. It is case studies. These were people that were not professional speakers, but they had great stories to tell. And so we built that platform for it to happen. And it gave a lot of people, for some, their first experience speaking at a conference. People were very nervous about it, but you guide people through it. And it's not even just at hosted events like Attune, but other industry events where vendors might sponsor, but then want to do a really great case study around it. The last thing I want to do as a sponsor of an event is get up on stage and talk about us. What I want is a communicator talking about something they were successful at, some impact that it had in their organization. Those are amazing opportunities because they let you practice your craft. Oftentimes you're not paying to get there. You get a free registration out of it. Tons of opportunity around that. So yes, that is a vendor relationship or partner relationship, however you want to view it. But I've always viewed those as really great professional development opportunities where even I've gone up on stage with someone who I don't think he's on. I'm going to shout out Joey D'Amico at Big Lots. Joey had never spoken at an event before. He was really nervous. I was like, Joey, you know what? I'll do it with you. We did it on stage afterward, or we did it on stage together afterward. He was so proud.
Yeah.
That was one of his career goals, was to speak in an event, and we got to help him do that. So there's a lot of opportunity to partner.
And I think if you have a bit of nervousness about what do I talk about, I'm a little nervous public speaking, which most people are, then that's also a safer way, because as Chuck said, you might have someone from that company doing a Q&A with you or helping guide you through the presentation, things like that. So it's a little bit of a safer way to do that. The other thing I will throw out in terms of where to get started is think outside the industry. We love our industry of internal comms. There are lots of opportunities within our industry to speak. There are also lots of other industries that would love to hear insight from internal comms people. So think about some of those spaces and places and people that you know in different industries that might be going to conferences or hosting something that you could offer to them. Hey, do you want someone to come in and do a 20-minute quick chat about the value of employee engagement or the value of internal comms? Because when you speak to those audiences about internal comms, you can be very high level because they're not looking for intricate case studies because they're not in our industry. So it's more just the general value of it. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually was asked to speak at the Greenwood, Indiana Rotary Club luncheon a few months ago. It was a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal. But anyway, no one in that.
Can I jump in with another idea? Speaking
Yes.
of all white events, which maybe the Greenwood Rotary meeting was, I don't remember. That's another place to start. So we've started, or maybe we is the wrong word. I have started pulling sponsorship and support from events that have all white speakers out there.
Okay.
The place to start is because we need representation and diversity that shows off the diversity of our industry. And so if you see events that don't have representation, don't call them out, meaning like publicly call them out, but reach out to the organization and suggest either yourself, if you're a person of color or from an underrepresented group, or someone who would be good at that event, sponsor them. Not financially sponsor, but mention their name, get them involved in that.
I'm making a note to come back to this.
Okay,
because that's an important topic. Back to the Greenwood Rotary Club. Nobody in that room worked in internal comms. People were in banking, they were in insurance, they were in auto industry. Like it was anyway. So there are lots of, they were enthralled with what I had to say, which to me seemed kind of basic, but it wasn't to them. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about, Susanna brings up HR has so many conferences,
An insane amount of conferences. Yes,
Yes,
Susanna.
HR is a great place to connect with. They have all of the conferences.
And there's some, again, the stories are similar. The insights are similar. The focus is on the employee, or it should be on the
Yep.
employee, which is what both groups should be focused on.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. Great call out there, Susanna.
Okay, cool. So let's move to what the heck do I talk about? I want to do maybe a quick question first, because Zane had a question that isn't totally in line with this, but I'm going to jump it in anyway. What are you hoping to see from the audience during and after the presentation as a speaker? I would simply just say what's happening right now online is what I would love to have in person as well, and some kind of interaction. So you also have to build your presentation in that way that's going to invite some of that interaction, but that's what I'm always looking for. And of course, I think every speaker, well, I don't know if every speaker, I'm always looking for who's doing this while I'm speaking, because that to me is like, oh, it's boring. So
Well, I know if I get one laugh, that's what I want. I want one laugh
okay.
during the talk, and then people have at least paid attention.
Yeah.
And you've made some kind of connection with them. Another great piece of advice someone shared with me, name was Greg Shove, one of the former co-founders at First Up, made a great point. Like, you're not going to connect with everybody in that audience.
True.
3 people, 300 people, 3,000 people. You're not going to connect with everybody. Just connect with a few people. If you connect with a few people, your job is done.
Yeah.
You did your job. It's not about having everybody stand up and applaud afterward. It's about making a connection and sharing ideas with just a few people, and you've won.
Yep. HR conferences, IT conferences, someone's bringing up HR stuff. I think IT conferences as well are looking for that link to internal comms and employee engagement.
They're probably looking for something remotely interesting.
Stop. They might be. They might be. So what the heck do you talk about? I'm going to, right now, if you are thinking I would love to speak, but I have nothing to talk about, you're wrong. You do have something to talk about. You just haven't quite grasped it yet. If you think about anything that you have wanted to talk to a peer about, if anytime you've thought, I wonder if someone else is doing this, talk about that. So case studies, great example of things. Everyone's like, I don't have a case study. Yes, you do. Have you ever done a product launch, a platform launch? Have you ever launched an intranet, an app, whatever? Any of that stuff qualifies. Talking about, it doesn't have to be the world's greatest intranet, but to talk about the very specifics of how you got through the process and how you got people engaged and how you continue to get people engaged. That's great content. New software, transformations, any business change, mergers and acquisitions, layoffs, returning to work. Lanice made a comment somewhere, looking for a story. Oh, here you go. If anyone's looking for a story on how to successfully inspire people to return to the office, yes, it's allowed. Of course it's allowed. That's what this is for. So yes, if that's a phenomenal topic, especially right now, how to encourage people to get back to the office. Any interesting research or lessons learned? Chuck, you want to bring back that comment you made earlier about the 2 types of presentations?
Yeah, so it's either the work you've done or what you believe in. And so a lot of the things that Kristin's talking about is like the work you've done. Maybe you've gone through a merger and acquisition and you've came out one side. What I view as a great presentation isn't when it's not only the good stuff. We know bad things happen, crappy things happen, things aren't perfect. When I see someone share this glossy full page brochure and everybody's smiling and it's all finished and done, we know that's not how it worked. That's not authentic. But if you talk about the struggles and how the team came through it and the results, and you've got data to back it up and anecdotes and stories, and here's examples, present that holistic, healthy view, that's a great story. If it's just the positive highlights, not a good story. I think the other thing is, as you learn things, so when I talk about the things you believe in, one of the favorite talks I ever built was around cognitive bias. and conscious bias. And all of a sudden that topic fascinated me. And I was able to relate it back to the internal comms and HR world. Or I learned about this SCARF model created by this neuroscientist, David Rock. It's like, oh, that's a really cool topic to change the way communicators think about internal comms. The example Lenice gave, it might not even be an exact scenario. It might be, here's what I did at work. Now here's how you can roll this out. So it could be a mix of both around belief in what the work you did, but also the belief in we can change how people view the workplace.
And Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but the talk that you did around cognitive bias was not, the material you presented was not yours. And I'll clarify that a little bit, I guess. Like, it was research that you looked into, read about, discovered.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Chuck was doing the research on cognitive bias.
Why are you selling me out?
Stop. Oh, spoiler alert.
Chuck no. I was very transparent in it that I was not a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
But it fascinated me. And I saw how it built these connections back into employee and employer relationships and why leaders behave certain ways and why we as communicators also behave certain ways.
And so as long as you're giving credit to the researchers and acknowledging like you didn't do the research, right? Excuse me. This is the point of the whole thing. Zane, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. We spend so much time convincing employees how their stories matter. We tend to forget that for ourselves. If you went through your calendar right now and looked at every meeting, whatever you have scheduled for the week, you would come up with at least probably 5 or 6 topics that you could talk about because you're always involved in some kind of project or program or launch at work. All of that is content that you can use. Russell, here we go. Best presentations occur at the intersection between personal passion and industry knowledge. This is my favorite topic to talk about at conferences. Yep. What the Bengals have taught me about internal comms.
And I would even take it one level today and say like the 8 leadership lessons from Joe Burrow.
Oh, wow.
Right? What a great
Russell,
topic that would be, Russell.
Here we go. But no, it's true. It's like, what has this taught me about or internal comms? I wrote a LinkedIn blog post once that everything I need to know about my professional life I learned from working at Walmart.
That would be a great presentation.
It would be a great, and you know what? I could wear my Walmart vest.
You could,
and then they would probably sue me, or they'd have someone from legal come down.
You could get everybody to do the cheer in the crowd.
I would do it. I would do it. I would freaking do it. So on that note, here's an interesting segue then. What if your company won't let you talk? Like, what if your company is like, nope, you can't present on anything that you do here. We will not let you do that. The first thing Chuck Gose is going to say right now is, why did you ask permission? Am I wrong?
It's one of the questions. Yes.
Right. So maybe less time asking permission. You're out there bragging about what your company is doing and what you as a communicator are doing. Okay. So that's first things first. I also understand that some people are in very regulated industries. You're also not going to speak about insider trading info. Like, you're not sharing nuclear codes, right? So everyone needs to dial it back a little bit. Let's worry a little bit less about the red tape involved in there. Having said that, I have worked for organizations that were not supportive. The last 5 years of my corporate life, when I was doing the most speaking, the organization that I worked for was not supportive of it. They asked me, I was using my own time, my own vacation time, and my own dollars to do that because I was trying to get myself out there. And I enjoyed it. They actually told me that I should lie about where I was going and doing so that other coworkers didn't know that I was going to do that, because it made it look like the company was paying for it, even though I told people they weren't. But anyway, that's besides the point. There are ways around it. There are ways that you can go and speak about something that happened at a previous company, and you don't necessarily have to name the company. If you give enough details about industry, whatever, you can still go and have that conversation. Chuck, what say you?
I think if you feel like you have to get permission, go in with, I'll create a term called assumed permission. That it's here's what I would like to do, not can I, go speak at this event. I would like to speak at this event about these things because of this is the impact it's going to have for us as a business and talent recruitment and brand awareness and showcasing us as a top employer. There's an opportunity for you to do more than just speak at a conference about that project you did. Share the impact that could have beyond your presentation, your brand being out there, your name being out there. But to Kristen's point, well, I'm going to take actually one step back. I will hear a lot of communicators say, "Oh, we're not allowed to do that," and I'll be like, "Well, did you ask?" And it's either like, "Well, no, 5 years ago I was told I couldn't," or "I heard about this one colleague who got fired once because they did," or "I know somebody else who they said no." If you feel like you need to ask, obviously ask. But I said, go in with the confidence that this is what you want to do for you, your company, your career. Talk about it from a professional development standpoint. Every organization should be investing in employee professional development. Maybe that's the path you want to take.
Yeah.
So, but there's always a way, there's always an avenue to make it happen. If it comes down to where you need to invest in yourself to make that happen, then you make that call. If it means you pay the flight, you pay the hotel, but you get to go to that event for free as a part of it, perhaps that's worth it for you, but make it happen.
This is also a good segue into our final topic of conversation, compensation and ethics. Maybe the most heated theme of today's chat, because we both feel so passionately about it. You mentioned, Chuck, I mentioned too, paying my own way, travel, etc., to go do these events. I was in a position where that was feasible for me to do. And so I fully recognize the privilege and ability and access that I had to be able to do that. That's not the case for everyone. So as Chuck mentioned, there might be times where a company giving you or an organization giving you a free conference registration, if you can get yourself there to speak, that may be worth it for you. And maybe that's what your company needs for that to be palatable for them to say, yes, we're cool with you going and speaking on this topic. That's great. There are trade-offs for that as well. For Chuck and I think there's a bit of sometimes a misconception, because we are very vocal about organizations paying speakers for their time and their expertise. The reason we are so vocal about that is not because we never do anything for free. We still do things for free. And there's nothing wrong with that. Our issue is that the expectation in our industry has become that every conference has a whole bunch of experts speaking about incredibly interesting topics, and nobody is compensated for their time and money. And the vast majority of conferences that are put on, I would say all, but I know there are a couple that aren't, are for profit. That's why the conference is being put on. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But when there's a conference that's making a significant amount of money and they're doing it with the somewhat mild exploitation of the people who are giving of their time and expertise, that's not always okay. So there are times where there are people like myself who are self-employed, people who run agencies, people who are consultants. That's a different situation. And so they are absolutely in a position often where that trip is a write-off for them, right? And it's a business development opportunity for them to talk about it. We want more in-house communicators to be able to share their stories. So that is partly why Ecology has started compensating. We've always compensated people, live stream events like this, internal stuff where we bring in people outside the community to talk to people in Ecology. Camp Ecology speakers are compensated. No one's retiring off of it, but if nothing else, it's going to cover your expenses of travel to be there. So I think I recognize that it's not always the best option for everyone to be compensated, and that's okay. Compensation looks different in different ways. What I am saying is we all need to start requesting. The worst thing that a company can say is, no, we don't offer any compensation. That's fine. Then you get to make the choice. Are you going to be there or not? If the best case scenario, you ask and they say, actually, yeah, we do. We do offer a travel stipend, for example. They're not going to advertise that all the time, which is a whole other ethical thing, but it is true. Lenise points out, people of color are often asked to present for free or offered a rate far below their counterparts. This is also true. All of our compensation is flat across the board, and we are happy to share that information with people. I've always told our members, anytime someone's doing a live stream event like you're seeing now, we pay everyone $250 each. Camp Ecology is $1,000 each. That's the same across the board. So this is also a really good point that ties into the compensation and the ethics part of the whole speaking gig industry. Chuck's oddly quiet.
Yeah, because I've been stewing on a word that you said earlier.
What?
That you said it was mild exploitation, and I would say that it's blatant.
Oh, okay.
Exploitation
I accept
of
that.
the industry.
Yep.
That there are organizations who are, as you said, 100% for profit. They only exist to sell to, it's not just the internal comms world, it's all industries.
Mm-hmm.
There are event businesses. And it's not that they're bad businesses, that's just what they're in the market to do. And if they say they can't make money because they can't sponsor or they can't provide compensation or whatever to speakers, then you've run a pretty poor business
right
out there. You're not running the right model.
Right.
And the only reason those conferences are valuable is because of the content that is being fed by practitioners, again, inside and outside of internal comms. We talked about HR before in IT. It is prevalent across that these organizations compensate. Now, it could be that if you're going to speak at a conference about what your organization does, you might not be able to be paid. I run into that sometimes. And in the first up world, there are customers who I would love to compensate for time, but they cannot accept compensation because it's viewed as favoritism and it violates their travel policy and all that. Absolutely honor those things.
Yeah.
But as you pointed out, Kristin, ask. Because if you don't ask, it likely won't get offered. If you do ask, then that forces the conversation back to them. It shows them that you are calling out your value in your time away from work, time away from family, time away from what you love to do, to spend time at their event, to put your face, your company's logo up on the page. Like, that's valuable. And whether it's cash money, whether it's, you know what, we'll take care of your airfare, we'll take care of your hotel, whatever it is, then at least you get to make the choice.
Yep.
But don't have that choice made for you and feel like that's the only alternative. Because as Kristin pointed out, we are happy to support the industry. And as you also pointed out, nobody's retiring. Nobody's quitting their day job because of this. I haven't even quit my day job.
That's true. That's true.
So, but it's important to us because of our past experiences and feeling like, why were we giving our time and putting so much energy into someone else, simply them making more money?
Right. Zane brings up a great point. This was always me. My entire real job history is nonprofit, government. None of those places were paying for me to go to a conference. I was usually lucky they would pay for one a year. Awesome. But that's it. I wanted to go to more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to speak at more. So that's where I was then spending my own money to do that. And I don't, that's what I did. Was it right? I don't know. But Zane's point is bang on. And that's exactly why we've said, okay, we're compensating people, because we want people who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford because their companies won't fund it, or for whatever reasons, right? We're missing a big population of people who have great stories to share because these events are not accessible to them because they can't afford to go. And I don't want that to be the case for people. So that is absolutely one thing. Lenice is agreeing with Zane too. And I will then also add on to that, there is an ethical issue as well. Lenice brought up people of color who are in our industry. They're often paid less. In general, that's a whole other social issue that we could get into, but at a conference standpoint. So in the same way that it takes people like, I guess, us to say, hang on a second, we should be paying people, right? I hope that means that people are now going to start asking larger companies for some compensation when they speak, because I'm hoping that we're leading the way on that. I also hope that we're trying to lead the change on, oh, that's an all-white panel. No, I'm out. But it's going to take people in our positions to make that stand before companies and organizations make the change, because they're not going to be able to get the speakers that they want unless they start making that change. So I would strongly encourage everyone who is paying attention to this live stream. Chuck and I have been doing this now for a while. We often will hold each other accountable to this as well, I will say, around the dinner table, asking conference organizers if they have a commitment to diversity and inclusion and accessibility. Physical, if it's an in-person conference especially, is there a physical accessibility component to what they're doing? And that means that sometimes you're going to have to turn down opportunities because that commitment is not there. Chuck, I know you've done that as well.
I'm proud to say that I have pulled out of events that I did not think represented the industry.
Yeah.
And I was happy to do it because it was the right call to make. And I think that all of us, anybody who is working to be an ally, we owe it to ourselves to hold others accountable and expect better. And if they don't, then don't participate. Don't give them your money. Don't give them your time, your thought leadership out there. I think that I was peeking over to the chat around the exploitation and comms. Like it's we can all do better. Some of us are doing better than others. So it's something Kristin and I have prided ourselves on with ecology. I've done the same with any events that I've been a part of with First Up. And we want others to also want to be better. Not everybody's going to care about it the way we do. That's their choice. We would love it if the ecology membership held others accountable for being better and grew this industry to what we know it can be and be proud of it.
Yeah, this is, I think, what you were talking about, Caitlin, talking about the exploitation. It does seem, I've only ever worked in the comms industry, and it does seem like it's more common here, and I don't know why that is. I will make a note that unpaid internships are a very uniquely American thing. So y'all need to figure that part out, because unpaid internships blew my mind. So that I don't even know why those exist.
I think it's starting to figure itself out. But me as someone, again, I'll go back to the mid to late 90s when I did internships. I did a few that were unpaid. I didn't hate it. It was a good experience. But to think that now with the lens I have, that shouldn't be the expectation.
Right.
No different we talk about with events. It shouldn't be the expectation. You can choose to do those.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the expectation that that's all you've got available to you.
Yeah. To that point, there are times where we've had someone, who is self-employed or from an agency, for example, do something for ecology, whether it's inside for our membership or a live stream like this. And there are times they will say, honestly, it's not worth it for me to invoice you for $250. I don't care. And I'm like, okay, we'll make a donation somewhere then, if you'd prefer that. But my expectation is, I am trying to pay you. Let me know how to make that happen. If that's complicated, we'll figure something else out, but there should be some kind of compensation involved in that. Lanice has an interesting question. Do conferences ever have speakers that challenge them? Do you mean speakers that who are at the conference doing a presentation and challenge the conference organizers who are there? Because I would die to see that.
But I would say by then it's too late.
Well, I agree, but
you've got to do it
there's
before.
There's a little bit of burn it down energy there that I'm totally here for.
I'm gonna tell a story without naming names, because I promise you I wouldn't name names.
Okay.
There was an event in Europe that I pulled out of. It was actually a virtual event, so I didn't go to Europe for it. Virtual event. I was signed up for it. About a month or so before the event, I looked. It's all white faces, and I contacted the event organizer and said, "Look, I can't be a part of this event. I'm happy to give you a few names of people who I think would be great, who would provide better representation out there." That organizer said, based on where they were in Europe, that was not important to them based on who their audience was. I was like, that's your choice. It's important to me. I'm not going to be a part of it. I then saw that person at an event in London this past November, and he asked if I was going to join their events. And I asked him the question I asked him before. He said, nope, not important to us. And I was like, nope, not going to be a part of it. So you can call it out. I don't know that people see it all the time. It's something that our friend Dr. Lino So if you don't know Dr. Lino, just Google him. Said that he spoke at an event that Chris and I were a part of years ago. Once you see things, you can't unsee them. This is now something I've seen, so I can't unsee it. So any event that I'm going to, even I'm not speaking at, if I'm going to it, I don't see representation, I don't feel good about it. And either I don't choose to participate or you call it out. So I think it's up to us to call out and expect more from industry organizers. And they'll say it's too hard. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people were calling out manels. I think they were called like all male panels to make sure that women were represented. There was an event in New York. It's actually happening in 2 weeks that I pulled out of because they wanted me to be on a panel, back to Caitlin's point earlier, with 2 other middle-aged white dudes. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to do that.
We got a lot of those.
We've got plenty.
Yeah.
So I think it is about calling out, but it's going to come down to that individual and what's important to them.
Zane, I'm pulling this comment up from before. Advita has an incredible growing list of underrepresented speakers. So anyone who thinks that the excuse is we can't find people is BSing, because people on this chat are excellent speakers. And so, so there's also a formal list. If someone's like, we really can't find someone, you're like, here's a literal list of people that you can call. So that's a great resource.
Lenice is tearing up the chat.
I love it. Is she? Are we burning it all down? Yeah. What was this? I did a blog once about workplace experience from the perspective of Black employees. I would love to talk about that. I would love to have you talk about that.
Right, because that's something, Kristin, you or I will never be able to have that experience.
Do you have the link? Lenice, put the link in the. We all want to read this. I think
that's one of those things. We hear stories from friends or individuals, but Lenice, honestly, that's an amazing topic because that's something that I guarantee a lot of leaders inside and outside of comms in HR, just C-suite, probably don't have that experience unless they are Black. And probably they haven't even maybe put those thoughts together to put it. So I would, please share that link.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And that would be a great session to pitch, I think, at conferences. I am in. Lenice, you want to do that at any event that I am doing? You let me know, and I'm happy.
One of the best. So I feel bad about trashing Caitlin's panel thing earlier.
I don't think Caitlin was saying like, she's.
I know, but there was. Now that I'm thinking back, there was a really good panel, and I give a shout out to Amazon. Amazon catches a lot of crap for some other things out there, but I had the privilege of speaking at one of their internal events just for their communicators pre-pandemic. And they did a really great DE&I. They called it a panel, but what it really was, it was hearing individual stories from diverse audience members at Amazon about what it was like working at Amazon for them. LGBTQ, Latinx. There was a Black employee there. One, not just LGBTQ, in particular, one employee was transgender that talked about that. Like it was that panel actually gave way more insight than anything I've been a part of, and it wasn't just this boring Q&A. So sorry, Caitlin, if I felt like it.
So full acknowledgement that it is not the responsibility of underrepresented or minoritized people to share those experiences. It is our responsibility to learn about them. However, Lenice's example is a great one, that if you are someone who is comfortable sharing that and doing so in an environment that's supportive and safe for you to do that, I think that would be an incredible asset to our industry. Yeah.
Agreed. Great call out.
We're a minute over. You know how I feel about time management. This was an awesome chat. Thank you everyone for coming. It was just phenomenal to see and hear and whatever. We're both available for questions and stuff. I'm sure most of you are probably already connected to us on LinkedIn. Reach out anytime. We would love to have you inside Ecology as a member. If cost is the reason that you cannot join Ecology, please send me a message and I would be happy to set you up with a membership that gives you a little more grace period with those payments. It is Also, in the world of association networking organizations, we've tried to make it the more affordable option. It's 150 US a year. We also have a special rate for my Canadian friends who get stuck with exchange rates, and we also have a student rate. So love seeing everyone. Have a phenomenal rest of your Thursday. Thank you all. And we will see all of you on the conference circuit from here.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.